Hi guys, so we're continuing on from yesterday. If you haven't done part 1 of the lesson yet, I suggest you do that before part 2. We are still writing linear equations, but this is going to be a little bit more complicated, so you're going to need to know what we learned yesterday. So this is going to be like yesterday, but instead we're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form when you're given 2 points, when you're given 1 point in a parallel line, or when you're given 1 point and a perpendicular line. So we're looking at 3 separate types of exercises today. Knowledge you'll need ahead of time is the slope formula. So we've been there, done that. We've covered this. If you don't have it memorized, I'll be referencing it as we go. And that needs to look more like an X, less than like a Y. There we go. And then a couple of pieces of general information. First, about parallel lines. When two lines are parallel, they have the same slope. Slope is like the steepness or the angle that a line travels, and for two lines to be parallel, meaning they never touch, they have to travel in the same direction. They have to have the exact same steepness, so they have the same slope. Perpendicular lines, now if you forgot what perpendicular means, perpendicular basically means two lines that cross each other at a right angle or a 90-degree angle. So when two lines have when two lines are perpendicular, their slopes have a very special relationship. It's kind of hard to phrase. Here's how I always say it. Perpendicular lines, they have opposite, reciprocal slopes. So opposite means one's positive, one's negative. Reciprocal means that if one is A over B, the other one is B over A. So you need to know how to take a fraction and flip it over. Pretty easy. The only trick about reciprocals is sometimes with a whole number. So if you have like 5, what's the reciprocal of 5? Well, what you do is you put a 1 under the 5, and when you flip it, it becomes 1/5. Similarly, if you have a fraction, if you're given 1/3, what's the reciprocal of 1/3? That's going to be 3 over 1, which you'd probably just call 3 instead of 3 over 1. So, slope formula, you need to know that parallel lines have the same slope and perpendicular lines are special. Their slopes are opposite reciprocals of each other. If you're at all confused on that, especially that last one, when we get there I'll try to explain, a lot better. But this is just kind of a preview of what we're getting into. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The first 8 problems are the situation where you are given 2 points. 1, 2. Now, of course, I'm going to do the evens, so there's 8 problems. You only have 4 of these type to do for homework, and then we'll get into the next type of problem. All right, so number 2. Before I start, I'm going to just label things. You don't have to, but it's a good practice. So x1, y1, x2, y2. All right, just like yesterday, our final answer is going to be y equals something times x plus or minus something else. So leave a blank in front of x. We're going to need to fill in that blank with a slope and then calculate the intercept that goes there. Yesterday, they flat out told us what the slope is. So that was done for us, and all we had to do is the second part. So today we're going to do both parts. We're going to find the slope and then find the b. So we're going to start with finding the slope. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, you don't necessarily have to write this down every time you do one of the problems. I'm just, teaching, so I'm going to write everything down. Oops. So, y2 minus y1, that's 3 minus negative 1 over x2 minus x1, which is negative 3 minus negative 1. When you minus a minus, it turns to plus. 3 plus 1 is 4. When you minus a minus, it turns to plus. Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. 4 over negative 2 simplifies. 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. So now we know that the slope is negative 2. Okay, that's good. So y equals negative 2x. All we got to figure out now, what is the b? So this is exactly like what we did yesterday now. Well, not exactly. There's one difference. We're going to plug in x and y. You can either plug in that xy or this xy to figure out what b is. So let me come down here. We're going to figure out the y-intercept. and we're going to use y equals mx plus b. So let's, just for the sake of consistency, let's just say Haskell is always going to use the first point. Whatever's given first, that's what I'm going to use. So y is -1, m we just figured is -2, times x, which is also -1, plus b. So, I'm going to color code this. In yellow, that's the slope. In orange, that's the x, that's the x. And then in, how about green, right here, that's the y. So that's where those numbers all came from. Now to work this out, -1 equals -2 times -1 is +2 plus b. To isolate b, I need to subtract 2 on both sides. -1 minus 2 is -3. -3 equals b. So go up to where my final answer was going to be, and I put a -3 there, and it's done. We've got the slope, which we calculated, and then the plus b, which we calculated. Let me go down and check number 2. -2x minus 3, right there. Okay, so the rest is just going to be repetition for the next few problems. This one has a 0 in it. Maybe zeros can make you a little worried or something. I don't know. I don't think anything tricky or especially fancy is going to happen. If you totally get this, you might fast forward the video until you see me get to number 10. That's where things are going to get different again. If you feel like you need to see the practice, keep on watching. Okay, so y equals blank x plus blank. I'm going to draw a box around this. This is what my final answer is going to be. I need to start by finding the slope. So x1, y1, x2, y2. If I do the slope formula, I need to do -4 minus 2 over -2 minus 0. -4 minus 2 is -6. -2 minus 0 is -2. -6 divided by -2 is +3. So a 3 goes right there. Next, I need to calculate the b. So y is 2, m is 3, x is 0, plus b. So once again, I don't know if you really need this, but I'll do it. The 3 went there. The x value 0 went here. And the y value 2 went there. Now I need to work this out. 2 equals 3 times 0. Well, 3 times 0 is 0. And 0 plus b is just b. So it looks like b works out to equal 2. So that means I put a +2 here, and I'm done. The box is around the answer. So 3x plus 2. Let's check number 4. 3x plus 2. All right, just do a few more. This is just practice at this point. Hopefully you get it. And it's something that you can easily do. So y equals mx plus b. I need to fill in the m and the b. To find m, I need to take x1, y1, x2, y2, and do the slope formula. So -1 minus 5 over 1 minus -5. Did I set that up right? -1, 5, 1, -5. Yep. -1 minus 5 is -6. 1 minus -5 is plus. That's +6. -6 divided by +6 is -1. So my slope is -1. Now I got to find the b. Y equals mx plus b. So my y is 5, m is 1, x is -5, and b is what we're trying to figure out. 5 equals -1 times -5 is +5. To isolate b, I need to subtract 5 on both sides. 5 minus 5 is 0. So my b is +0. So that's technically it. That's my answer. It's in the box. The slope is -1. The y-intercept is 0. But this came up yesterday. It's worth mentioning. When you multiply something by 1, you normally don't put the 1 there. And when you add 0 like this, you normally don't write the +0 because it doesn't change anything. So y equals -x should just be the answer. And there it is. Y equals -x. I mean, if you wrote y equals -1x plus 0, you're not wrong. I mean, that's technically correct. It's just not right. I mean, just doesn't look right. Okay, number 8, last one of this type. So y equals blank x plus or minus blank. Let's find the slope by taking x1, y1, x2, y2. So 2 minus -5 on top, -3 minus -5 on bottom. Minus minus turns to plus, minus minus turns to plus, and that works out to be 7/2. So it looks like 7/2 is our slope. Now, you see how we got 0, we got +2, we got -3, nice whole numbers. You get a fraction, you can sometimes get a little suspicious that maybe you made a mistake. So it's not a bad practice on a homework like this where you're just practicing to go down and check and make sure it's right, and we can see here, yes, it is indeed right. So nothing to panic or freak out about. Where am I? I'm scrolling. There. Okay, so now we need to calculate b. Y equals mx plus b. Y is -5. M we just figured out is 7/2. X is -5 plus b. So we need to work this out. -5 equals 7/2 times -5. So we covered a little review on fractions. If you're just trying to go quickly, you don't want to strain your brain over how to work this out. I went over this on the previous lesson. You can do 7/2 times 5 on Desmos. 7 divided by 2 is your 7/2. Move the cursor over just by tapping the screen, or you can use the little right-facing arrow on the keyboard. And then times -5 times -5. And you get -17.5. Now, I don't know if you remember, but when I scrolled down to look at the answer, that wasn't it. Here's a little trick for Desmos. If you look at the screen, in the blue, there's a little circle with a weird symbol. It looks like a box, a horizontal bar, and then another box. If you press that right there, it changes this to -35/2. So that might be worth knowing something about. Now, if I go back to the original problem, we're not done. I need to isolate b, so I need to add 35/2 to both sides. And this, of course, cancels out. I get b equals -5 plus 35/2. Again, you should and could be able to do this on your own without a calculator, but right now, if you're just thinking, I want to focus on the main point of the assignment and not fractions, I'm going to type -5 plus 35. Again, the fraction or the divide button can be your fraction bar over 2, and then hit that little circle there, and you get 25/2, or 25/2. So our b works out to be 25/2. That's positive, so I put plus 25/2. And what's in the box should be the answer when I scroll down to number 8. Too far. There it is. 25/2. Yep. So we are good. So it would be great to do all the fraction work by hand, in your head, what have you. If you need to pull up the calculator just to save time, I mean, the main focus here is y equals mx plus b. The main focus is not how good can you work fractions. We already covered that. So use the calculator if you need to save some time and to ensure some accuracy. Okay. Now we're moving on to a new type of problem. Write the slope-intercept form of the equation. So same thing we did yesterday, same thing we did up above, of the line described. So it's going to pass through a point, 3, -1, and it's parallel to this line. So, oops, what am I trying to do? I was going to erase all this highlighting. It's too much. So it's the same exact goal. Y equals mx plus or minus b. We just need to fill in this space and this space. The first space is easy. As I said before up in the notes, parallel lines have the same slope. So the slope of this line that's given is 4/3. That means that 4/3 is going to be the slope of our answer. Now the +3 on this line is completely irrelevant to what we're doing. Disregard it. The the y-intercept of that line doesn't help us. Only the slope helps us. What we need to do now is use this xy to calculate our b. So y equals mx plus b is going to be 1 equals 4/3 times -3 plus b. Why did I use parentheses there? Why not? It doesn't matter. Now, I really hope you don't need the calculator on this one, but just in case, 1 equals 4/3 times -3. 4/3, move the cursor over, times -3 is -4. Add 4 to both sides. 5 equals b. That's a positive, so I put plus 5. And what's in the box should be the answer. Let me scroll down and check number 10. 4/3 x plus 5. Indeed, that is right. So again, the slope that's given in the line is the slope you're going to use in your answer. The plus b you have to calculate, just like we've done a whole bunch of times already. All right, let me do the next one. It's just repetition to make sure you get it. So y equals blank x plus or minus blank. That's what we're going for. The slope is going to be whatever this slope is. So parallel lines have same slope. What is the slope of the given line? What number do you see in front of that x? You don't see any number at all. That means it's a 1, which means there is technically a 1 there. But as we've mentioned before, and as you see, you generally don't write a 1 when that happens. So you can just, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I want to erase that. You can just make this an x. If you're comfortable with a 1 there, go ahead and put a 1 there, but you don't need it. Now we do the whole y equals mx plus b. Here's our x, here's our y. 4 equals 1 times 2 plus b. Again, do you want a 1 times 2 there? Fine. What is 1 times 2? It's just 2, so you can just put a 2 there. To isolate b, you're going to subtract 2 on both sides. 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 equals b, so put a plus 2 there. And number 12 is done. Y equals x plus 2, or like I said, if you have y equals 1x plus 2, you are technically correct, but the answer is not going to look like that. Yep, it's just x plus 2. All right, so there's parallel lines. Now for the last type of problem, perpendicular. See the word perp here. It's not perpetrator. It's not someone who's committed a crime. It is perpendicular. So perpendicular, we said, have opposite reciprocal slopes. Opposite recip. Hopefully you know what that means. It means perp. Okay. Y equals blank x plus blank. So the slope. I need to take the slope from this line that's given and reciprocate it or flip it over. So -3, it's technically -3 over 1. So when you flip it over, it becomes -1 over 3. So reciprocal is where you flip it over. But what about opposite? Opposite means if your slope is given as a negative, the one that you use is going to have to be positive. So positive 1/3 is going to be the slope for our answer. One more time. Perpendicular, perp, means opposite reciprocal. The opposite of negative is positive, and the reciprocal of 3, oh, I'm going to sneeze. Sorry about that, guys. I turned away from the microphone. Hopefully you didn't blast your eardrums. Okay, back to what I was saying. Opposite reciprocal. The opposite of negative is positive. The reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. Now we need to calculate the b. So y, oops. How many times do I say oops in one lesson? It's crazy. Y equals mx plus b. So the x and the y are up here. 1 equals 1/3 times -3 plus b. I'm not going to pull up the calculator for this one. 1/3 times -3. A negative times a positive equals a negative. The 3's cancel out and just leaves us with -1 plus b. To isolate b, I have to add 1 to both sides. 2 equals b. I meant to cross that out. So there's our b, a plus 2. So what you see in the box, 1/3 x plus 2, should be the answer to number 14. Any day now. Come on. There it is, 1/3 x plus 2. All right, let's do number 16 and we'll be done. Let's peek at the answer. Negative 4/5 x, and there is no y-intercept, which means it's probably going to be a plus 0, or it's definitely going to be a plus 0. So that's what we're going for. All right, we'll do it just for extra practice. Okay, y equals blank x plus blank. This is our answer. The slope goes in front of the x, and since we have perpendicular, we're looking for the opposite reciprocal once again. So the opposite of 5/4 is going to be negative, and the reciprocal of 5/4 is going to be 4/5. So negative 4/5 x. Now to calculate the b, y equals mx plus b. Here's x, here's y. 4 equals 5/4 times negative 5 plus b. Something does not seem right. Oh, what? Say, what did I do? Look at that. Is that what I was supposed to put there? What a maroon. All right, roast me in the comments. It's okay. Negative 4/5 goes here. I'm supposed to carry this slope down to there. Duh. Okay, so what do I have here? 4 equals negative 4/5 times negative 5. A negative times a negative is a positive. The 5's cancel. That just gives me positive 4 plus b. To isolate b, I need to subtract 4 on both sides. 4 minus 4 is 0. Oops. So 0 equals b, just like we peeked at the answer, plus 0. So we know that our final answer, y equals negative 4/5 x. You don't need to write the plus 0, and there it is. We already looked at the answer before we started, so we're good. Okay, so do the odds. There's only 8 homework problems tonight, so hopefully this does not give you too much trouble. Don't forget, the quarter ends in a couple of days, so make sure you're getting all your work done. Show your work, grade it, turn it in. I'll talk to you again real soon.